Welcome to Forum 360, a global outlook with a local view. I'm your host, Pat Simons. Do you ever wonder who draws the lines that determine your congressional district, or what effect it can have on elections and who represents you in Congress? We're going to talk about gerrymandering in Ohio and the current grassroots movement to take districting out of the hands of political parties. I'm glad to have Jackie Derrow with us. She is a volunteer with the nonpartisan organizations Fair Districts Coalition and League of Women Voters. Welcome to the show, Jackie.
Thank you, Pat, and thank you for inviting me to join you and represent Fair Districts for U.S. Congress.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about your background and what is your compelling interest in gerrymandering and redistricting?
I have a background in professional services, business development. I worked with about 2 different organizations over a 25-year career, and I'm happily retired now, and this gives me an opportunity to work on things that are I have a passion for, and I've really found a home for that work with the League of Women Voters and the Fair Districts movement.
And you've obviously found that the redistricting issues are something you can identify with. It seems like there's so much unfairness in that.
There certainly is, and really our unfair districts affect everything in our lives, from funding for the arts, for health care, for how we spend the monies in our federal coffers. So important for everything in our lives.
Well, I know this is a big subject. Well, first of all, let me ask you what Fair Districts is and who are some of the other organizations involved in this?
Fair Districts is a grassroots citizen-led coalition and a citizen initiative, and it was formed for the purpose of reforming the way in which we draw the districts, our U.S. congressional districts. In Ohio, the Ohio legislature has the sole authority to redraw the maps, which is required under the U.S. Constitution after each U.S. Census. And we believe that this should be a bipartisan approach. One party should not have the sole authority.
In terms of the coalition, is there broad support from other organizations?
Yes, there is. The coalition has 34 members, of which the League of Women Voters is one of the lead sponsors. And all these organizations are nonprofit organizations, and they are funded solely by donations. So we welcome any support that you can provide.
So this is a big subject, but can you give us a brief outline of what gerrymandering is and a historical perspective on it?
Gerrymandering is the process by which one party manipulates the drawing of a congressional district to favor its political party and create a desired outcome in its favor. And the historical background is first of all, Democrats gerrymander and Republicans gerrymander. This is an age-old process, but it's really started with Elbridge Gerry. He was then governor of the state of Massachusetts in 1812, but he was one of the original signers of the Declaration of Independence. And his party had the power to redraw the maps in Massachusetts, and they drew a map that was so oddly shaped it looked like a salamander. And so taking Gary's name and salamander, they pasted it together to get gerrymandering. And the Massachusetts legislature was successful. That map did predict the outcome of that election.
So from that time forward, gerrymandering has been used for drawing districts by a majority in power political party, and the state legislatures draw the districts.
That is correct.
So voters overwhelmingly passed a bipartisan redistricting commission for the Ohio House and Senate in 2015, and that's going to become effective after the 2020 census. But now, and I understand Fair Districts supported that movement, but now you're back. And now you are supporting a petition drive for Ohio's congressional districts. Why were congressional districts not included in the 2015 issue?
Well, actually, it was the legislature that put forward a bipartisan resolution to reform districting in Ohio for the state house and Senate offices. And that was what was voted on by the electorate in 2015 and passed overwhelmingly, 71%, and it passed with majorities in all 88 counties, demonstrating that the population really wanted these maps, a different approach, a bipartisan approach to redistricting. At the time, the legislature said that there was a case that was pending in Arizona that was looking at the constitutionality of having a commission be responsible for redrawing the maps, and they wanted to see what the outcome of that was before acting, and so it wasn't taken up. And there have been other reasons they have put forward to not act on congressional redistricting.
So you have to come back and get congressional districts who are also, that's our House of Representatives, and they are also gerrymandered. So you have to come back and do that as a separate issue. So
Yes.
what does the U.S. Constitution say about districting?
The U.S. Constitution says that every 10 years, every state must resize its districts. We have a fixed number of congressional seats in the U.S. Congress, and as a result, some states grow in population and some states are reduce in population, and since all of the congressional seats have to be representing approximately 700,000 people currently, these districts must be resized. So that's principally what the Constitution says as far as changing the maps. As far as court cases associated with this, there's the Voting Rights Act of 1965 has a provision that says that jurisdictions may not be drawn to disfavor a minority, so to dilute the voting power of a minority. And this has been, even though this is law, many legislatures tried to create districts that were, that in effect violated that law. And in 1986, there was a case where the Supreme Court set a clear legislative framework for defining racial gerrymandering. And now, currently in the courts, actually in October, they'll begin, the Supreme Court will hear the first oral arguments in Gill v. Woodford, which is a Wisconsin case alleging gerrymandering, and Democrats are saying that that their rights have been abridged as a result of partisan gerrymandering, and the hope is that the outcome of that case will yield a definitive legal framework like there is for racial gerrymandering that will define what is political or partisan gerrymandering. Right now we don't have that, and that's what's being sought.
So gerrymandering causes imbalance in government, and what is its effect?
I'd like to take a look at this map. This is the current map of Ohio's U.S. congressional districts. It went into effect in it went into effect in 2012. It was as a result of the 2010 census. In 2011, the map was redrawn, and then in 2012, this map went into effect, and it has perfectly predicted the outcome of the races for the last three U.S. congressional elections, 2012, 2014, and 2016. This map was drawn with very sophisticated technology, and it has been designed to create districts that are extremely safe for those who are running in them. And so, as a result, we have 16 U.S. congressional districts in Ohio, and as a result of this map, we have 12 Republican districts and 4 Democratic districts, and that is unbroken. We cannot. It's very difficult to flip these districts because the majorities are so great in them. And if we take a look at the map, if we look at the yellow district that skims Lake Erie
That's District 9?
Yes, that's Marcy Kaptur's district, and it slices off pieces of 5 different counties, starting near Toledo and going all the way into Cuyahoga. There is no single county that is included in Marcy Kaptur's district.
So what we're seeing is there's generally it does not join up counties in a contiguous way, and it does divide people up, and whomever has the power to draw the districts using sophisticated technology can create that. I wanted to ask further, why should voters care about that?
Well, voters should care because they end up not having a voice. We are reminded that when the congressmen came back from Washington, many of them refused to hold town hall meetings. They didn't have to because they are more accountable to their parties than they are to their constituents. Many candidates have refused to debate. They don't need to debate their opposition because their seat is confirmed. Actually, for many of these representatives, the real races occur in the primaries, and that is where the tough fight occurs. If you are not extreme enough, you usually are primaried on your extreme flank, whether you're a liberal or a conservative. And
so basically, it does have a great impact on imbalancing government and our representation. This is Forum 360, and I'm your host, Pat Simons. We're talking about gerrymandering and redistricting of U.S. congressional districts in Ohio. And our guest today is Jackie Derrow of Fair Districts and League of Women Voters. I was wondering if we could pass on to the idea of that Fair Districts is petitioning to get the bipartisan Congressional Redistricting Reform Amendment, and that's a mouthful. You want to try and get that on the November 2018 ballot. What can voters expect if this amendment goes through?
Voters can expect a bipartisan commission. It will be the same commission that was enacted in 2015, which includes the governor, the Secretary of State, the auditor, and a member appointed by the majority leaders of the House and the Senate, as well as the minority leaders of the House and the Senate, and so that creates a 7-member commission.
What are the main 4 points? What can you synopsis those?
So, bipartisan commission. No district may be drawn that has for partisan purposes. districts must be kept compact. So we wouldn't have, like in Marcy Kaptur's district, only a piece of a county. You'd have at least one whole county, and the public will have an opportunity to see the map. And comment on the map and actually submit their own maps. So this will be a fair and open process, not drawn in a hotel room like the last map was, but rather a whole public process.
So it seems like a very common sense approach. There are checks and balances, there's transparency and accountability. It also appears that it is more voter-centric and less partisan policy-centric.
Absolutely.
So it seems like it's a good thing for citizens. So we talked about the U.S. Census, and that's conducted every 10 years. That affects drawing the districts and the timing of doing that. Can you talk about what happens if we do not get this passed in 2018 for the next census?
We must get this passed. There is no, there's really no option for us. If we don't get this passed, then we likely will be faced with a map that is gerrymandered and that will stay in effect from 2022 until 2032. And I know I can't wait that long. How about you, Pat?
I don't think so either. So we have the Redistricting Commission, bipartisan commission for the House and Senate. What is the difference between the U.S. congressional? Is there a difference in what we're trying to pass?
Well, yes, there is a slight difference. Under the House and Senate, the commission, if they do not agree on a map, they will, after a certain amount of time, a map will be accepted and it will go into effect for 4 years and then be revisited 4 years later. In our proposed amendment, all members of the commission must agree. So there's
checks and balances, and it can't get stalled. Is that
exactly? Yes.
Let's talk about the petitioning process. Who gets to sign the petition?
To sign the petition, you must be 18 years of age, a U.S. citizen, and an Ohio resident.
And you must be a registered voter?
And a registered voter, of course. Thank you very much, Pat. Yes.
So if someone approaches a petitioner and says, I live in Ohio, but I'm not registered, what can they do?
We can register them and then have them sign the petition.
And you can help them register in
yes,
general?
Yes, right, on the spot.
And they now have online registration, too.
Yes.
So it's
right.
gotten even easier to register.
Right.
So how many signatures do you need to get this on the ballot? And how long do you have to get them?
Well, we need more than 305,000 signatures. And there is a minimum requirement of 5% of voters who from 44 of Ohio's 88 counties who voted in the 2014 gubernatorial election. And we have until, say, the end of June in 2018. However, we really want to get this done as soon as possible because I didn't know this, but 25% of Ohioans move annually, and so some of the signatures go stale. So the sooner we can accomplish this and submit the petitions to the Board of Elections, the better off we'll be.
So how are you coming so far with your petition gathering, your signature gathering?
We're doing quite well. We're about a third of the way there, and we need more help. So go to fairdistrictsohio.org to volunteer, please.
And my understanding is that there is a recent requirement that these signatures be vetted or evaluated for validity as you get them. you can't just wait and validate them after. So when you quote a number, they're actually valid signatures.
That's right. Yes, yes. It's a very tedious process and
time-consuming.
Right. And I might mention this is an all-volunteer effort to date. While most citizen initiatives have paid solicitors, we have had only volunteers, over 2,400
Wow.
people all through the state. And it's some volunteers are the ones that are doing this validation process. It's very tedious. You have to enter every name into the Board of Elections database. You have every petition must be scanned in. Every page, even if it's an unused page, must be scanned in. So it is very tedious.
So what if I wanted to volunteer as a petitioner? How would I get trained? Who do I talk to?
Well, if you go to fairdistrictsohio.org, they have online training there, or contact the League of Women Voters and we can get you lined up with training.
Oh, that's excellent. So what happens, you've got all of those signatures, they're all validated, they've been put into the system, you have approval for the ballot, then what happens?
And that's when the big effort comes in. While we've been educating the public all along as we ask people to sign the petition, the real public education effort comes after all the petitions have been submitted. And it's going to cost a lot of money as we look at issue 2 right now and all of the ads that are going, pro and con. That costs money, and we expect that this will be a very hard-fought effort because, as Rich Exner from The Plain Dealer pointed out in his very good recent series, in 1968, Ohio had 26 U.S. congressional districts. Today, we have 16.
Oh,
and
losing.
Yes, we're losing. With every census, we're losing. And we're expected to lose one in 2015. Not because Ohio is losing population, but we're static and other states are growing. And so the powerful, I might mention that the size of your delegation, your congressional delegation, is equal to the number of electors you have in the Electoral College. And so no one wants to see that delegation reduced. And so I think this will be a hard-fought battle. And
so there can be opposition emerging with this issue.
Yes.
There can be competing redistricting plans coming out.
Yes.
It seems that citizens would want to look at pros and cons and have something to compare with. And if you could hold up again the amendment, if they go to Fair Districts, they can look at that amendment and they can actually do a comparison with what is emerging, whether it's
Exactly.
opposition or it is competing
Right.
plans.
Yes, these principal points, yes.
I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about where we can get information on gerrymandering, the amendment, and how to volunteer.
The fairdistrictsohio.org website has a wealth of information, and it's really a great place to start. There's online training, as I mentioned. There are many different articles, a whole media section of endorsements from many different newspapers throughout the state, you can find out all the information that you need about what is gerrymandering, how gerrymandering works on that site. So it's a great place to look.
Could you show us your resource page, and then I will
certainly
say that as well for our radio
Thank
listeners. You can go to Fair Districts at fairdistricts.ohio.org. They have a Facebook, they have a Twitter. You can also go to League of Women Voters of Ohio at www.lwvohio.org. Thank you, Jackie. That was a lot of information. I hope that people will take their time to get to know more. We want to thank you for joining us today for an important discussion on gerrymandering and the current effort to fix Ohio's congressional districts. And thank you to Jackie Derrow from Fair Districts and League of Women Voters for explaining the bipartisan Congressional Redistricting Reform Amendment and the grassroots petitioning effort to get it on the 2018 ballot, and why timing is critical for this issue. This is Pat Simons for Forum 360, a global outlook with a local view. Have a nice day.
Forum 360 is brought to you with support from Electric Impulse Communications, Kim and Harvey Nelson, Rubber City Radio Group, Acronist.com, Hudson Cable, Medical Mutual of Ohio, Forum 360 supporters, and the Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron.